What's up, everybody? This is the Gold Standard 00924 coming at you with another video. Gonna be continuing my TV countdown series. I know I haven't done one for about 3 months now, but with college out of the way, I finally have the opportunity to pick up where I left off, basically. But in this video, like I said, will be continuing my TV countdown series. And the video here, I'm speaking is about my top 10 TGIF shows. Now, for those people that don't remember, TGIF was a Friday night comedy block on ABC, which ran from about 1988 to 2000. And there was a little resurgence also in 2003, 2005, but a lot of people tend to ignore that. It was very forgettable, to be quite honest. But with the TGIF incarnation, the first one that a lot of people remember was the one from the late '80s that carried all the way up through the '90s, and unfortunately, due to the lack of viewership, ABC retired the TGIF block in 2000. So so let's kick it up, shall we? So I'm not gonna waste any time. So I really want to get to my top 10 list. So I don't want to drag the video as long as it is. Um, so yeah, so let's get started. Coming in at number 10. This show was a short-lived series that came out in 1997. It was about these two friends. One of them actually is a guardian angel who actually died after eating a hamburger from under his best friend's bedroom. And then because of that, he died, and eventually he was sent to heaven and was selected to be his best friend's guardian angel. And the show I'm talking about, coming in at number 10, is Teen Angel. Now, Teen Angel, this was really around the time Sabrina was very, very popular at the time, and it was also part of the TGIF block as well. And because of its tremendous success, ABC executives thought, why not create another show that embraces the mixed combination of sitcoms and fantasy? And this show was one of them. And fortunately, the show only lasted 17 episodes, so there isn't really much you could really say much about. But I thought it was pretty funny in a way, but at the same time, for a short-lived series, it's very, very forgettable. And not to mention, this was also around the time that Family Matters and Step by Step moved to CBS, which unfortunately that was where they had their last seasons on CBS, so those shows got canceled. And yeah, so because of that, TGIF was really, really kind of starting to dwindle down in towards the end of the decade. But I thought the show was okay in a way, but I think compared to a lot of other TGIF sitcoms on the that were around before and after it, I guess it just didn't really hold up to me as much. But so yeah, that's basically number 10, Teen Angel. Number 9. This was another short-lived series that came out in the late '90s. It also starred the Olsen twins, and also had and they also have a father who is a. Sorry for a bit of the pausing there. Something came up on my computer screen, but now that's out of the way. So number 9, like I was saying, this show also starred the Olsen twins, and it had their father who was a professor at a certain university, and eventually they get a babysitter who actually is the student of their father, who is a professor, like I said. And the show I'm talking about here at number 9 is Two of a Kind. Now, for a short-lived series, this show did get plenty of reruns. Um, it was on Fox Family about a year after a couple months after the show got canceled. Reruns went over to Fox Family, which we all now know as ABC Family, where it continued to air there until like 2005, and since then it hasn't been seen on TV. Um, it also starred a young Orlando Brown, which a lot of people may know him on That's So Raven. Yeah, I mean, there's some notable actors on here. I don't think the adult actors didn't really get far after this, but I guess because the reason, even for despite being a short-lived series, I guess the reason why it got reran because the Olsen twins were on there. Obviously, they were very very popular around this time. Um, I mean, and also this was another one of those Miller Boyd shows that was the same company that brought you Full House, and which also starred the Olsen twins, by the way. But I personally don't really care for them now. I mean, they just are irrelevant to me. But this was towards the end of TGIF, like I said, so um, that's basically it coming in at number nine. So I'm not sure what I was wanting to say there, but sorry for the little pause there. So number nine is Two of a Kind. Number eight, probably gonna get a lot of flack for saying this, but now granted, me and my sister used to watch this show, but looking back, it just didn't really live up to the hype of the movie. And yes, it did turn into a TV adaptation. The show came out in like 1996, a year after the movie, and it's one of those love it or hate it type of movies or type of TV shows, excuse me. And the show I'm talking about at number eight is Clueless. Now, you know, this show does get criticized because they kind of changed the cast a little bit around. I mean, some of the actors that came from the movie reprised their roles in the TV adaptation to it. Like Stacey Dash was on there. The other two African American guys were on there. I forgot their names. I think one of them was actually went on to do Scrubs. I forgot the name of the actor, but yeah, one of those guys were on there. The chick that played Amber was on there as well. And unfortunately, the original actress that portrayed Cher, who was Alicia Silverstone, she did not reprise her role, and instead she got replaced by an actress by the name of Rachel Blanchard. And at the time, I was surprised because they both look alike basically, and I'm not sure if little kids, including myself, even caught that. But and then they also really kind of I really don't know. I mean, Brittany Murphy's character, she wasn't there. I mean, she guest starred in like one episode, so. But even though the show was getting some pretty good viewership on ABC, they canceled the series before they even listened to their fans, and before they know it, ABC's contract expired, and UPN picked up the rights to air the remaining two seasons. And yeah, I mean, I know this show doesn't really hold up to me now, but it's very dated, and it just for some reason it just wasn't as good as memorable as the movie, and surprising enough, the show managed to even get past the first season, shockingly, and words cannot really express just how dreadful, how mediocre it was compared to a lot of the other shows that was on this block. But so number eight is Clueless. Number seven, I got on this list. This show came out in 1992. It started off with a male adult along with two females who were actually who were actually living in the same house. And it started off as an adult sitcom, but then the show moved from Tuesdays to Fridays, and because of that, the demographic of the show started to change and became more family friendly ish. And the show I'm talking about at number seven here is Hanging with Mr. Cooper. Um, this show ran for about 5 seasons. It also starred Raven Simone, who didn't show up until like the second season, and she stayed there from until the show ended. Um, I think also Omar Gooding was on here for a little bit, but I'm not sure if it was like a guest appearance or something. I mean, it's been a long time since I watched this show, and that's because that's why I kind of ranked it so low. Even though the show was pretty moderately successful, but unlike the other TGIF shows that most people talk about, like a Full House, a Boy Meets World, or Step by Step. This show didn't really get as much reruns, I could say. Well, it did get reruns like on TNN, which we all know is Spike, but it just wasn't on the same cable network you know that was on ABC Family, which basically reran a lot of the popular TGIF shows, except for this show and Perfect Strangers. Unfortunately, I couldn't put Perfect Strangers on this list because that was a show that came before my time. So unfortunately, for most of you people that are wondering if this show is on this countdown list, unfortunately, I did not put it on here. I didn't really get to watch it because, like I said, I was too young. I didn't really remember it or appreciate it for that matter. But it's not like I hated it. But I know I'm getting a little off subject there. But getting back at number seven, yeah, Hang with Mr. Cooper was on this list. But I will say Holly Robinson was actually pretty hot back then. Um, I'm surprised. I think she was like in her late 20s, but I thought she looked a lot younger than that. A little younger, to say the very least. But I don't know. I mean, I think her character and Mark's character got married towards the end, but then all of a sudden, um, in the last season, like it moved to Saturdays, which got like the lowest viewership, and then it got interrupted due to the Princess Diana's tragic death. So yeah, so the show kind of really started losing its popularity by the last season, since it was taken off TGIF. So yeah, number seven, unfortunately, but at least it had an ending. But number seven, that was Hanging with Mr. Cooper. Number six, I have on this list. Now, surprising enough, at the time, I thought I always affiliated this show as excuse me, a primetime sitcom that was on the WB. But I did not realize this, but this show actually started off on ABC, and it was on the TGIF block. Surprisingly enough, I didn't even have any idea this show was a part of ABC's Friday Night Comedy block, and this show I'm talking about here is number six, is Sister Sister. Now, this show was basically about two African American twins separated at birth. Um, it also starred Marcus Houston, who most people might know him as an R&B artist, and he was. This show ran for about 6 seasons, and I mean, it starred Tia and Tamara, trying to get to know each other. I mean, they break the fourth wall and stuff here and there, just talking about their lives and, you know, just stuff that they go through. Um, I don't really know what to say. I mean, you had Roger, who was like their next door neighbor, who was kind of like the comedy relief guy. And, every time, like, mostly every time, anytime that T and Tamara get kind of annoyed by Roger, they just insist in him to go on home. So that was pretty much the common recurring gag in the show. And they also have they also have their parents who weren't actually married really, but I mean they weren't like married in a way, like I said, but I think they did towards the end of the series. Correct me if I'm wrong, but or at least attempted. But yeah, I mean the show started to really change when Roger's character left, and then the twins went on to college. So I mean, it's one of those shows that started off as a sitcom, but then they kind of really started to slowly turn to a more serialized sort of sitcom. But I mean, I know it sounds like a paradox there. It may not make sense in that usual sense. But coming in number six was Sister Sister. Um, so yeah, so that I just counted down from the countdown list from numbers 10 to 6. I'll be back a little later. I mean, I'm not going to split the video into two parts, but I just need a little time for intermission just to kind of. My voice is starting to get really dry by now, so I'm not going to split up the part, but I'll get back to it later. So until next time, I'll see you all in a little bit. Hello, everyone. Back again from the intermission, and I want to continue where I left off by finishing the remaining countdowns. Basically, the top five portion of my TGIF countdown list. So let's get started, shall we? Coming in at number five. Now, this was basically a sitcom that was kind of inspired by the Brady Bunch, and it came out in the early '90s, which starred Patrick Duffy, who most people may remember him from the '80s drama Dallas, and Suzanne Summers, who some people may know her from the earlier seasons of Three's Companies. And the show that I'm talking about coming in at number five is Step by Step. Now, this was basically one another Miller Boyett shows out there that came out in 1991. The show ran for about 7 seasons. It was kind of like the Brady Bunch because you had the mother who had her own kids and the father who had his kids as well, and they both move in together under one roof. So that's kind of how the premise works. And one of their break kind of their breakout star of the show was Cody, who was actually a skilled martial artist, and the actor indeed was in fact had a martial arts background. Sasha Mitchell, who played Cody Lambert on the show, so he was kind of like the surfer dude type of personality, type of attitude. Eventually, he kind of left the series midway, like a lot later through the series because he supposedly like abused his wife, I think, and then because of the incident that happened behind the scenes, um, he was written off the series. He would make a few guest stars here and there, but he was pretty much written out of the series entirely. And then I don't remember like what I know they replaced him with another character, but getting back, I mean, step by step, this was one of another one of those successful TGIF sitcoms. It did get reruns even after the show ended on Fox Family, on ABC Family, and until for about several years now. I mean, it's not on ABC Family anymore, but it's not seen anywhere else on TV so far. So, um, this show was I don't know what I would say, but I gotta say the daughters are pretty hot in the series. I want to say that for their time, that is. But I'm not gonna go in depth as much, um, but they were hot in general. But yeah, so number five is Step by Step. Number four. Um, Now this show, it was one of those successful TGIF shows, like I said as well. And the show came out around the mid '90s, with Melissa Joan Hart, which a lot of people may know her from Clarissa Explains It All on Nickelodeon. And a lot of people seem to associate her as Sabrina more than her role as Clarissa, despite the fact that Clarissa Explains It All was the show that put her on the map. But for some reason, people like to rather associate Melissa Joan Hart as the Sabrina character. But and this show, I guess it's not really a surprise since that was like her most recent successful show. I mean, she has Melissa and Joey now, but before that, this show ran for about 7 seasons. Ran from like 1996 to about 2003 ish. And the show that comes in at number four is Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Um, so basically, it was about a girl who discovers that she has witch powers, and she lives with her two aunts, um, Hilda and Zelda. And along the way, she meets up with her rival character Libby, who's kind of the cheerleader of the school. Um, and eventually, Sabrina also gets a love interest with Harvey, which is kind of like the ongoing romance that goes on throughout most of the series. Um, they actually had a one character named Jenny who was in the first season, but then she left the series after the first season. I mean, they didn't really explain where she was or like her whereabouts, like when she left the series. But she didn't really get like a proper send off in the way, and she got replaced by a character named Valerie. Um, Now, I would say like maybe the first 4 seasons when it was on ABC, it was fine. I mean, that's mostly what I when I first saw the show. I mean, I only watched it for the first 4 seasons, and then like when it moved to the WB, it just kind of really they just really retooled the show. I mean, there wasn't really a whole lot of magic. I know the show does get a little bit inconsistencies at times as well. Um, but and they also had a couple cast changes here and there. And but I always thought they kind of wrote off Valerie and Libby, and they got rid of like the principals as well. I mean, I know that she eventually graduated and stuff, but they never really did a graduation episode because normally when you see like a teen sitcom, you always see them, or a teen drama for that matter, you always see the characters actually graduating on stage. But with this show, you didn't really see that. But I guess because of the characters, some of the characters left the series. I guess that might have been the reason. But um, so yeah, I mean the character changes really hurt it. Um, so yeah, and then eventually the last 3 seasons, some of the characters got replaced. They brought in the chick from Punky Brewster, and the red hair chick from Clueless was on there as well. And yeah, I mean, and then the show just really started to change. But you know, number 4, Sabrina Teenage Witch. Number 3, coming on this list, this was really, really tough to decide because this was one of the other shows that I watched on the TGIF block. It was so hard to really kind of go back and forth, like saying, oh, what should be a number 3? What should be number 2? Some people may, I know a lot of people get a lot of flack for putting this on this list, and some people may think, oh, the show was too cheesy. It's too morally correct all the time. It's the jokes or kind of cheesy in a way. But what do you expect? It's a family friendly show, so you expect stuff like that. And this was kind of a guilty pleasure now that I look back at it now. And the show I'm talking about at number 3 is Full House. Now, Full House, it ran for about 8 seasons. It starred Bob Saget, who played Danny Tanner, who moves in a house in San Francisco along with his 3 daughters. Having witnessed the tragic death of his wife, who died of a car accident, and also along that way, he brings in two of his two roommates who were his best friends, Jesse and Joey. Jesse started off as kind of like the rock star, and Joey was basically kind of like the comic relief, kind of like doing a lot of voiceovers, kind of the stuff that he does best. Um, and you also have the daughters, DJ, Stephanie, and Michelle. And then the second season, they brought in Rebecca Donaldson, or Becky, who served as Jesse's love interest in the second season. So it took them about maybe about a season or two before they actually got married. But I mean, basically, this show was one of the most cash cow shows on the TGIF block. The Olsen twins got their first start as well. They were kind of going back and forth. Switching from Mary Kate and Ashley. Different actresses, despite the fact they were twins. But you know, um, I mean, the show, like I said, was very cheesy and didn't really go through a lot of cast changes, really. There were some recurring characters that kind of sort of came and went, like Vicky, who was kind of like Bob Saget, or not Bob Saget, but Danny's character's love interest. That eventually she moved, and then he was just back to being single. And and you also had Taj Mowry, who played Teddy, who was Michelle's best friend, who was on there. And to think he would eventually leave the series, and then somehow he would end up having his own TV show by the end of the decade. So that was kind of an interesting twist. Yeah, and the finale was just kind of there, really. I mean, I expected a little more. I mean, some people have mixed reviews on it, but but that that aside, number 3, Full House, will always be a childhood mine, whether I would like to admit it or not. But it's just my opinion. So number 3, Full House. Number two. Man, this show, man, I don't really know what to say. I mean, this was really hilarious, but to me, in my opinion, but me and my dad used to watch this show a lot, even when it was in reruns. But I mean, the show kind of really started losing it from its family-friendly sitcom-ish and to be all about the one character, the one nerdy character that was coming up with all these weird scientific experiments. And the show was just really kind of becoming like a precursor to what we see on the Disney Channel to some extent. But this the show consisted of an African American cast, and it was basically and it was basically supposed to be a spin-off to Perfect Strangers, which had Harriet, who moved into Chicago to spend time with her family. And the show was a lot different. If you watch like the first season, um, yeah, the show that I'm talking about specifically at number two is Family Matters. So, getting back to the Harriet character, yeah, in the first season, she was supposed to be. It was kind of supposed to be centered around her and her family. It was very, very. The first season did feel kind of different compared to like a lot of the later seasons. When the show became, when they brought in Steve Arkell and his popularity skyrocketed. There were more episodes that revolved around Steve Arkell, who was the guy that he was the guy next door. You never really get to see much of his family, and when they do, it's uh, mostly just his parents or his siblings that look resembling like him. They brought in like the Bartle Arkell character as well. Jaleel White portrayed pretty much a lot of the characters in the show. Even when Steve Arkell was absent. I think it was kind of like Martin Lawrence on the Martin Lawrence show. Like when Martin wasn't around, he always portrayed different actors or different characters. Excuse me, but um, but yeah, it was kind of like that, in to a certain way. Um, but yeah, I mean, this show, like I said, I mean, it started off pretty funny, but then they brought in like what was that guy's name? I forgot what his name. He was Eddie's best friend. Oh yeah, Waldo Faldo. Yeah, he was pretty funny, and I thought sometimes he seemed to be a lot more funnier than Steve Arkell at times. But it's kind of a shame that he left the series, and but I mean, yeah, the show is kind of pretty cheesy and outdated, like most of the shows that were out at the time. But no, it's always gonna be a childhood of mine. I mean, I personally rather watch this than over any half-assed sitcom that's trying to be all edgy like all the time and just trying to be push the envelope in a way. And it's really a shame there aren't really too many family-friendly sitcoms out there anymore. But hey, so number two is Family Matters. Number one, this show, man. Now this show had starred Fred Savage's little brother, Ben Savage, and for those people that remember Fred Savage, he played Kevin Arnold in the Wonder Years, and he also had a brother, Ben Savage. But even though Fred Savage is only guest starred in like one episode, but um, yeah, he did appear in a way. But I mean, he wasn't like a full time character, but that's totally irrelevant what I'm saying. But the show was basically what I'm saying is a coming of age series. Ran for 7 seasons. Ran from 1993 to 2000. And this show I'm talking about at number one is Boy Meets World. Now, Boy Meets World, you know, dealt with Corey Matthews and some of the life that he goes through in terms of his family and friends. He has a next door neighbor named George Feeney or Mr. Feeney, who was their history teacher. I mean, yeah, he started off as a history teacher, but then every season or so he becomes a principal, then he becomes a teacher again. So he was kind of fluctuating back and forth. So Mr. Feeney was kind of like the philosopher type of guy, just giving Corey some advice, or in case that Corey just not trying to have difficulty understanding the situation he's going through. He'll always go to Mr. Feeney and figure out how to deal with certain of his issues that go on in his life. So So he was very influential to Corey, as well as his parents. Um, and then as the show went on, I mean, the show became more. I mean, it was still retained the sitcom aspect, but the show did, as the characters were really growing up, they were going through a lot of emotions and tragedies. Like Sean's father dying, and um, what else? You know, just and Corey and Topanga's relationship playing a big role in the series as well. Um, some really deep stuff, and I mean, this show is just very timeless. I mean, it still gets reruns to this day, and Will Friedle was just pretty much the highlight of this show. I mean, not taking away anyone else's credit, but not but his character, being Corey Matthews' brother Eric, and his usual Feeney call. I'm not gonna do it, but you should know what the Feeney call is if people watch the show. But um, yeah, I mean, the show had a really great ending, with all the main characters leaving Philadelphia and stuff and going on their separate ways. So yeah, I know that now that I've heard recently that 12 years later after the show ended, it's announced that they're gonna plan the spin-off Girl Meets World, and boy, I already did a video of that a month ago, so I don't really need to reiterate that again. But all I could just say is that the show better live up to the hype, or otherwise this is just all waste of time. But yeah, so number one is Boy Meets World. So yeah, this is it for my top 10 TGIF shows. Tell me what you all think. I know this video is pretty long, but I didn't expect it to be as long as it is. I was just try to elaborate as much as I can about these shows, why I put them on this list, and so let me know what you all think of this video. Please keep the comments clean. So till next time, this is Gold Standard 00924 signing out.